.6 Abortion law. An abortion is the termination of a pregnancy through removing the embryo or fetus from the womb. These sound like some complicated words, so I'll go through them. You will notice that I did not use the word baby. This is because people differentiate between the baby that exists after birth and the fetus that exists in the womb before birth. An embryo is the cluster of cells that grows into the fetus that becomes a baby. In 1861, UK law changed so that anyone performing an abortion or trying to self-abort would be given a life sentence in prison. As a result, most doctors refused to perform abortions. So thousands of women resorted to backstreet abortions. These were usually where untrained surgeons performed the operation in unhygienic locations, like ordinary houses. Many women treated in this way died because the equipment was unhygienic or just plain dangerous. Between 1923 and 1933, 15% of maternal deaths were due to illegal abortions. After years of campaigning, the Abortion Act was passed in 1967 and abortions became legal. This certainly does not mean that people all agree with the law, but for feminists campaigning for women's rights in this area, it was a huge victory. Abortion is controversial because people disagree about when life begins and ends, and over when someone becomes a person. This is known as the problem of personhood. The law in the UK permits abortion up to the 24th week of pregnancy. It is only allowed if two doctors agree, if the mother's physical or mental health is at risk, if the child is likely to be born with serious disabilities or disease, and or if there would be a serious effect on other children in the family. As you have probably already worked out, this is pretty broad, so most people who want to have an abortion can usually get one. Abortions may be carried out after 24 weeks if the mother's life is at risk or the fetus has severe handicaps. Some people argue that the limit should be lowered because medical advances have made it more likely that fetuses who are born prematurely will survive outside of the mother's womb. This is becoming even more true nowadays as very clever incubators and doctors are managing to keep babies who are born prematurely alive with fewer complications. And so a debate is born. Some people who are pro-choice argue that all women should be able to choose whether or not to abort their fetus. This might be for financial reasons, because they feel unable to cope physically or emotionally, because they are not happy with how the fetus was conceived. In cases of rape, for instance, many girls and women opt to have the fetus aborted. There have been a huge rise of abortions in recent years, particularly as women are having more sexual relationships without being married and want to continue work, for instance, or even school. Other people, usually religious, argue that because life is sacred, you cannot place a value on it. You cannot decide whether a fetus or mother have a poor quality of life and make a decision based on this. These individuals are described as being pro-life because they believe that life should be preserved no matter what, because it is sacred. They are absolutist in their ideas about it, whereas people who are pro-choice believe that the relative circumstances must be taken into account. For your exam, you will need to know what the abortion law is in the UK and what the difference is between pro-life and pro-choice views, as well as quality and sanctity of life. Why is the issue of abortion often seen as being a feminist issue, i.e. one that affects women's rights? Why do some people think that the fetus has just as many rights as the mother? And finally, what do you think?